John Steinbeck, The Grapes of Wrath, is a book written in 1939, but also a mastercraft on how to improve your storytelling abilities. It's the story of the Great Migration of thousands of homeless families from the Dust Bowl of Oklahoma to California. It follows the Jehote family, who pile their stuff into a truck and head out the Golden West to the land of plenty in the hopes of finding work, but they encounter bitter poverty and oppression. There's going to be no spoilers, but this is very applicable for what's happening today. So if you haven't read it, grab it, have a read for a classic. But I'm just going to look at a couple of examples of how learning the lessons from how this was written, can improve your own stories. We're going to look at the opening paragraph. And there's many ways to open your story, many wrong ways, many right ways. And the way that John Steinbeck had chosen to open The Grapes of Wrath is by focusing on the land, okay? And the reason why he's focusing on the land and the aspects of the land is to impart the reason behind the journey in the story. So I'll read this opening paragraph and see if you can tell by the language he's using, the words that he's using to describe the land, if he's evoking a feeling for the setting. The setting plays a huge part in this story, and that's why he's opening with it. So let's see how it opens up here. To the red country and part of the green country of Oklahoma, the last rains came gently, and they did not cut the scarred earth. Notice it says scarred earth, so he's using scarred earth because it's dry, in a way that it also shows heartache. So the dry land is causing heartache on the people, and that's why he would use that word scarred earth rather than just dry earth. It's evoking emotion on how it affects the people, but also showing the effects that is taking place on the land. Reading on, the plows crossed and recrossed rivulet marks. The last rains lifted the corn quickly and scattered weed colonies and grass along the sides of the road, so that the grey country and the dark country began to disappear under a green cover. In the last part of May, the sky grew pale, and the clouds that had hung in high puffs for so long in the spring were dissipated. The sun flared down on a growing corn day after day until a line of brown spread along the edge of each green bayonet. The clouds appeared and went away. In a while they did not try anymore. Notice it says there, the while the clouds didn't even try anymore. That even the clouds had given up. It's showing not just what's happening in the land, but also the emotional effect, how it's affecting the people. They've given up on trying to make a living. This is all in the first paragraph. We'll continue on. The weeds grew darker green to protect themselves, and they did not spread anymore. The surface of the earth crusted, a thin, hard crust, and as the sky became pale, so the earth became pale, pink in the red country and white in the grey country. You can automatically see there he's showing the harsh conditions on the land of Oklahoma and how it's affecting its residents, how it's tearing them down. And it goes through this and it describes it in a unique and brilliant way, but he's not just describing a setting that's random. Bushy trees, nice bark, grass, a few leaves, it doesn't mean anything. He is describing the land in a way that absolutely means something, and it's affecting the inhabitants, and that's why they are making this move. So when you're actually describing an opening paragraph, you're going to use the setting. It's got to be because the setting is having an effect on the tale. The whole first chapter is description of Oklahoma and the people and the effect it's having on the people. This is how he ends the chapter. He focuses on the men, women and children and how it's having an effect. It says here, the women went into their houses to their work, and the children began to play, but cautiously at first. As the day went forward, the sun became less red. It flared down on the dust-blanketed land. The men sat in the doorways of their houses. Their hands were busy and with sticks and little rocks. The men sat still, thinking, figuring. It sees there, it's showing you the troubles that's pondering through the minds of the men there, trying to look after their families and kids, and they don't know how they're going to do it. So in that first chapter there, he's really set the scene. So if you're setting the scene in your first chapter, and the environment or the setting is going to have a big impact, you can use the environment, you can use the setting, but use it in a way that shows the emotional effect that it's having, or the effect that it's having on the people, on the main stars, on the characters of the story. There's also tons of little positive, heartwarming, but also heartbreaking accounts in the story. One little side one I'll share you with here, it's pretty raw, about a man who lost his wife and kids to the poverty that was happening down there when he went to California, couldn't find work, and this is what he says. And there's a writing lesson in this too. The ragged man drew himself up. I tried to tell you folks, he said, something that took me a year to find out. Took 2 kids dead, took my wife dead to show me. But I can't tell you. I should have knew that. Nobody can't tell me neither. I can't tell you about them little fellas laying there in the tent with their bellies puffed out and just skin on their bones and shivering and whining like pups. Me running around trying to get work. Not for money, not for wages, he shouted. Hell, just for a cup of flour and a spoon of lard. And then the coroner come. Them children died of heart failure, he said. Put it on his paper. Shivering, they was. And their bellies stuck out like a pig bladder. So obviously they didn't die of heart failure, they died of starvation. So the lesson you can learn from that is, although what he wrote there was pretty hard hitting, pretty raw, you couldn't get much harder fact than losing your wife and kids to starvation, he still put it in. So what needs to go in your story, if it's got to be hard hitting to tell your account, and that's what you have to put in. It could be one of the reasons why Steinbeck won a Nobel Prize for literature, although there's a lot of contention around that. They said he shouldn't have got it, but he did. So if your story needs to have hard-hitting impact, it's got to have big accounts, then you've got to put them in. Don't hold back when it comes to your literature. Get your story down, and you've got to put in what's needed to go in. All up, the story is a classic. I recommend a read if you get time. It really is about the dignity of the human spirit under stress and the most desperate of conditions, and the triumph of the human will. John Steinbeck, The Grapes of Wrath.